Good evening, everyone, or morning or afternoon. As I often say, depends where in the world you are or when you're watching this, but whatever applies, take the standard greeting. Candy is always here. Come on up. Say hi. Yeah, all you want is your treat. It's all you want. It's all you want. So food motivated, this dog. Shake a paw. Later. Speak. Come up here and show your face. There you go. And Candy has her treat. She's taken care of. I get some peace. Hopefully she doesn't go crashing over the cord or something like that. Got my coffee in hand. No, it's not cappuccino, although that's what it says. It's just the mug. Again, it's now 12:03 a.m. It is now the 28th of June. And I just wanted to do a video talking about bird flu and what's being reported in the news, as it says in the subject line to this podcast thingamajiggy on this miserable, pathetic YouTube channel. Finland is now going to be rolling out bird flu vaccines. Apparently they have about, I think, 10,000 doses that they're going to be prioritizing towards at-risk individuals. I guess that would be people who work in dairy or with poultry. I'll read you the article out of Reuters, but before I do, I think it's important to kind of look back on the COVID era and when it all started. I think to a large degree, the population that we were caught unawares. People were busy at the time. We're looking back at March of 2020, the year 2020. People were watching the NBA season roll out, the NHL season roll out. Looking forward to the start of the 2020 baseball season, these kinds of things, busy with work, family, distractions like Netflix shows and what have you. And I think to a large degree, the population was caught off guard. The Thursday before lockdowns, the church I attend held a soup tasting event hosted by the youth group. And we were all out at church on that Thursday night, about 100 people, give or take, tasting all these soups and behaving like everything was 100% normal. And then within a day or two, the government at that point advised all churches and any social gatherings of any description to voluntarily shut down. And then by the less than a week later, those closures became mandatory. A report was released by the Imperial College of London. They had something called their coronavirus response team. They had been issuing reports, and their new report was forecasting what would happen in the United Kingdom and in the United States. And they were forecasting a doom and gloom scenario. In the first year, they had 1 million Americans dying as a direct result of COVID, or the novel coronavirus, as it was most commonly being called at that time, soon to be called the deadly coronavirus. What they said is that if the United States did nothing, if they engaged in no NPIs, short for non-pharmaceutical interventions, meaning lockdown style measures and mandates, if they did nothing, that 2 million Americans would die. But they said if we bring in mitigation efforts like distancing and things of this nature, lockdowns, close all businesses and all this stuff, that the death toll could be reduced to 1 million. And regardless of whether NPIs were brought in or not, regardless of lockdown measures, the report predicted that for the United States, that people would be lining up 8 people deep. There would be lineups of 8 people to get a bed in critical care in an ICU type setting. That was the doom and gloom scenario painted by the Imperial College of London. And once that report dropped, it was around March 17th or 18th that report came out. I read it. That was the impetus. That's what led governments all over the world, certainly in my native Canada, across the US, Western Europe, to implement these soul-crushing, business-destroying measures. And one of the key planks was this idea of keeping 6 feet apart from one another, or 2 meters, which we have subsequently found out, in the last few months. Anthony Fauci has admitted that there was never any empirical data showing that it does anything. There was no science. It was politics over science. And again, we were caught off guard. We didn't know this was coming. We had the Hong Kong flu pandemic, which was around 1968. And the number of people who died over a 2-year period, I'd have to check back. I read an article published by the CDC, and if memory serves, they put the number of deaths worldwide at somewhere as many as 4 million people. And that was at a time when the world's population was less than half of what it is now. And nothing happened. They didn't. The Woodstock took place. The Summer of Love out in places like San Francisco. The baby boom population didn't shelter in place or do any of the stuff that we did in 2020 and 2021. So I think it's instructive to try and be ahead of the curve. When COVID was first being reported in December, January, February, when it first came onto my radar, I was paying attention. I was doing back of the napkin style calculations saying, okay, how many deaths are they reporting in China? It's a country of 1.4 billion people. And they were, how many hundred deaths? Okay. And I foolishly didn't anticipate what was coming. Now, forewarned is forearmed. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Are we going to be fooled again? I'm not predicting anything that's coming, but the article that I want to share is from Reuters. I'm hoping it shares well. I'm hoping it shares decently. I think the last time I shared my screen, I had done the Control Plus and I had enlarged it. And that might be the reason it blacked out. This one I'm leaving exactly as it is. So let's see. My computer's running a little slow right now. I have too many tabs open. Let's see if the article will open up for me. Yeah, okay. Right, here's the article I was. And I'm just going to fill with some background noise while I close some tabs. Hopefully speed things up a bit. But the headline of the article, this is Reuters, which is the news service, dated June 26th, so it's 2 days ago. 1 daylight time. Let me get some things closed here. Sorry about the delay. And I love the way you get all the ads coming up. So Helsinki, Reuters, and actually does it again. It actually, the date line they have is June 25th. So now 3 days ago, or 2 plus. Finland plans to offer preemptive bird flu vaccination as soon as country in the world to do so. The Nordic country has bought vaccines for 10,000 people, each consisting of 2 injections, as part of a joint EU, European Union, procurement of up to 40 million doses for 15 nations from manufacturer CSL Seqirus. And that's their stock symbol. The European Commission said Finland would be the first country to roll out the vaccine. The vaccine will be offered to those aged 18 and over who are at increased risk of contracting avian flu or millions of poultry globally in recent years, and has increasingly been spreading to mammals, including cows in the United States, and in some cases, also to humans. Risks posed by its fur farms. The conditions in Finland are very different in that we have fur farms where the animals can end up in contact with wildlife. Chief physician Hanna Najennik at the Finnish Institute for Health and Welfare told Reuters. Widespread outbreaks of bird flu among mink and foxes at Finland's mostly open-air fur farms led to the culling last year of some 485,000 animals to stop the virus from spreading among the animals as well as to humans. Vaccinations are likely to start as early as next week in at least some parts of Finland. Finland says it procured vaccines for people it deems to be at risk, such as workers at fur and poultry farms, lab technicians who handle bird flu samples, and veterinarians who work as animal control officers in regions where fur farms are located. People working in sanctuaries caring for wild birds or livestock farms, or in the clearing of premises such as animal byproducts processing plants will also be offered vaccines. And I think that's, I'll leave you, if human infection of avian influenza were to occur, close contacts of a suspected or confirmed case would also be offered the vaccine, it added. And that's the article. So I'm going to end the screen. Yeah. And I should let you know at this point that the live chat is on, as always. So if you want to comment, if you want to put up a comment in the live chat, you're most welcome. And of course, the comment field down below can be accessed either while the video is on or after it, for my computer being so incredibly slow. There we go. Come on. There we go. And right now I'm looking at a black screen on my end. There we go. Looks like I'm back. So I'm going to share now the article from Time magazine, and which is titled "What to Know About Bird Flu Vaccines." See how long it takes to come up. Looks like my computer is speeding up now a bit. We'll close another tab. And now I'm down to the bare minimum. Oh no, come on. Vaccines, sick read. Flu is generally a health concern in the fall and winter, but this spring and summer, influenza, specifically avian influenza or bird flu, is dominating headlines and weighing heavily on the minds of health experts. H5N1 is infecting chickens in at least 48 U.S. states and cows in at least 12. So far, only 3 people, all dairy workers, have had recorded infections, but health officials are keeping a close eye on whether the virus is getting better at infecting humans. Preparing for that possibility includes readying a vaccine. Here's what we know, along with if and when you might be recommended to get immunized. And I love the language here. You might be recommended. As we all know, with COVID, it was more than a recommendation. It was, well, we're not going to force you, but if you want to work, if you want to get on an airplane and visit a dying relative, you know, if you want to be a participating member of society, well, then you have to get it. But we're not forcing you. Anyway, is there a vaccine for bird flu? They say, this is Time magazine. There are three. The US FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, has approved H5N1 vaccines made by Sanofi, GSK, that's GlaxoSmithKline's subsidiary, so a subsid of GSK, called ID Biomedical Corporation of Quebec, ID, which the short is IDB. Biomedical, and CSL Seqirus, which was what they're using in Finland, all of which also make seasonal flu vaccines. Most of these are made using traditional flu shot technology. It says most of these. It enumerates only three and says most. So what is that? Three? Is there one that's not? Most of these are made using traditional flu shot technology, which takes months. Manufacturers first grow the virus in chicken eggs or mammalian cells, then purify the virus and include them in the vaccine. So we're talking about a vaccine that actually contains the virus that is being targeted. In this case, H5N1, this bird flu or avian influenza. Which is not how mRNA works. Sanofi, or Sanofi, I think it's pronounced Sanofi, received the first license in 2007 for an H5N1 shot using chicken egg manufacturing. IDB's vaccine, approved for adults in 2013, is also egg-based and is the first against H5N1 to include an adjuvant, or an ingredient that generates a stronger immune response. And CSL Seqirus shot also contains an adjuvant and was approved in 2020 for anyone 6 months or older. The company makes vaccines in two ways: by growing H5N1 in cells in its US facility and by growing it in eggs in its UK facility. Sounds almost like that lab in facilities that are growing viruses. Wonderful. The approvals allowed all three companies to manufacture doses for the national pre-pandemic influenza vaccine stockpile to have ready in case of a potential outbreak, but not to be sold for public use. The doses haven't yet been made available and only will be if there are bird flu outbreaks in humans and health officials determine people need to be vaccinated. What's in the stockpile? They say it contains hundreds of thousands of doses of H5N1 vaccine, mostly from Seqirus, that could be deployed in a matter of weeks, according to the spokesman for the Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response, the government organization that oversees preparedness for health emergencies. But the doses aren't necessarily ready to ship. The stockpile is more like a warehouse of vaccine components targeting different strains of H5N1 rather than a storage facility for final shots. So they have the components to make the vaccine, the way I'm reading it, but the vaccine itself hasn't actually been put together. It hasn't been manufactured. They have the components to manufacture it, but they haven't actually completed it. Before the vaccines can be released, they need to go through the final stages of production, known as fill and finish, and also receive an additional final clearance from the FDA. Working with authorities at the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the FDA, and the manufacturers, the team at ASPR constantly evaluates the makeup of the stockpile to make sure there are enough materials to produce vaccines against the currently circulating strain. Long article. The U.S. government recently ordered an additional 4.8 million doses of the company's vaccine to include in the stockpile, according to a spokesman from the company. Seqirus plans to provide these during the summer in preparation for a potential outbreak in people. Sounds to me like they're preparing for an outbreak in people. Now, what I will call the normies will say, well, they're not planning for it. They're merely planning in case. It's just in case. Now it's asking, here's where the rubber really hits the road. The question is asked, how effective are existing vaccines? And they're referring to the vaccines for bird flu. It's still unclear how effective they would be. So they don't know. They don't know if they work or not. Since there haven't been enough people infected to conduct proper studies, they haven't done proper studies on how well they would protect against illness. So right there in that sentence right there, they're saying, we don't know if they'll work or not. They say, but studies in healthy people analyzing the immune responses generated by the vaccine suggest, they don't prove, but they suggest that the shots should, not will, should provide sufficient protection. If this doesn't give you flashback to COVID times, it should. You know, this is political language being used. Will these shots work? Well, you know, studies in healthy people analyzing the immune response suggest that the shots should provide sufficient protection. So you don't know. You don't know if they'll work or not. Well, studies suggest that they should provide sufficient protection. And then you'll have people saying, well, studies prove they provide sufficient protection. And clearly, what is being written here tells me that they don't know. Should provide against illness from the currently circulating strain. In addition, the specific strain causing the current outbreak could differ slightly from the ones in the vaccines. It could differ, could. And again, this is a wiggle word. Could differ slightly from the ones in the vaccines. Or I would ask, could it differ greatly? And if it could differ slightly, could it also differ significantly? Could it be significantly different? This stuff is crazy. Seqirus is prepared to deliver 150 million additional doses within 6 months. These doses will be made from existing raw materials that are currently part of the stockpile and ready to be processed into finished vaccines. Now we get into, you know, are new vaccines being developed? Because the traditional flu shot takes months to make, CDC Director Mandy Cohen said that the agency is continuing to invest in new technologies, especially ones that will lead to faster production of doses. The goal is to have the ability to scale up extremely quickly. And we want, I think they left out a 2, and we want to do that with an mRNA platform. So they want to bring out an mRNA platform, which allows for faster manufacturing, she said at the Aspen Ideas Health Conference on June 21st, so just a few days ago. During the COVID-19 pandemic, manufacturers were able to produce vaccines in about 6 to 8 weeks using that technology compared to the months. Anyway, the article down below, you're more than welcome to read it. And again, I'm not predicting any of this is going to happen. I'm not predicting that we're going to have a bird flu pandemic outbreak. But at the same time, I think it would be foolish to bury your head in the sand and to just fixate on the baseball season or the upcoming football season or whatever, or your streaming show, and just to blithely ignore what's being reported right in the mainstream, right in front of our eyes, that most people won't even look at. And the last thing I wanted to bring up, though, is an individual who I don't think gets nearly enough credit. We all know the name Dr. Robert Malone, Dr. Peter McCulloch, Dr. Michael Yeadon. There were names that kind of were foisted on us as the voices of the opposition. And I know Dr. Michael Yeadon and Robert Malone and even Peter McCulloch, I believe they've all been on Alex Jones's InfoWars, which I tend to take a sideways glance whenever I see someone show up on InfoWars, or what used to be called Prison Planet, Alex Jones's um, broadcasting arm, his media arm, and the whole notion of controlled opposition, like we're watching a WWE wrestling match, and who's the heel and who's the face, and everything being scripted out. And there's another individual who doesn't get nearly any degree of press, and his name is Dr. Geert Vanden Bossche. And I would invite you. I've linked information to a book he's written recently about the inescapable reality of immune escape. And I followed Dr. Vanden Bossche early, around March of 2021. He came out with a missive. He published a paper advocating at that time that to halt the mass vaccination program. He wanted it halted right away. And he has the bona fides to at least offer an expert opinion. I cannot say whether he's right or wrong. I do not have a degree in vaccinology, immunology, or virology, or any of these disciplines. I took some science courses at the university level, but I'm not qualified by any stretch of the imagination to offer an expert opinion. So YouTube fact checker, community guidelines people, no advice here. I'm just talking about an accredited expert, someone who worked for Gavi. He headed up programs for Gavi, which is the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunizations, a guy who worked in vaccine development with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, for goodness sakes. And he also headed up or was involved in vaccine programs with GSK, GlaxoSmithKline, Novartis, and other companies. So, and when there would be world conferences on vaccines, he was a keynote speaker up until 2020, when he basically went off script and he said that mass vaccinating while a virus like SARS-CoV-2, while it's actively spreading widely in the community, that introducing a vaccine at this time is the wrong strategy. That was his opinion. He said what it does is it will put evolutionary pressure on the virus, and that the virus will learn to overcome any vaccine-generated antibodies. So, this guy is not anti-vax, obviously. You don't head up programs for Gavi and work for Bill and Melinda Gates and their foundation, and for GSK and Novartis. You don't live your entire academic and professional career in the vaccine industry and then become an anti-vaxxer. He's not anti-vax. He was merely saying that vaccinating during a time when the virus is spreading widely, it puts evolutionary pressure onto the virus itself, so that the virus will learn to circumvent or to defeat any vaccine-generated antibodies. And the whole idea behind the mRNA shots was that you get the shot in the deltoid, it sends a nanolipid particle, which is like a little message box. Like I've heard it described as a FedEx box. And contained within that FedEx box is instructions telling your body how to build the toxic spike protein on the surface of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So it's an instruction booklet saying these are the proteins you need to recruit, and this is how you put them together. And then your own body will make this toxic spike protein, which was seen as the key element of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, because it was that spike protein which would attach itself to receptor cells in an individual's body, and then allow the SARS-CoV-2 virus to invade the cell structure, replicate, and make you sick. So they said, if we can build up your immune response to this toxic spike protein by having your own body make it and then generate an immune response. That this was what they sold as the theory behind the mRNA shots. And what Dr. Geert Vanden Bossche, he wasn't talking about, would they work, would they not work? He wasn't talking about any of that. All he was saying was that, okay, he was assuming they work, that toxic spike protein that your body develops, then your body develops an immune response. You have antibodies now. What he was saying that was, because the virus is circulating widely and people are coming into contact with it constantly, that the virus would then learn to overcome those antibodies. That this was the evolutionary pressure he was talking about. And what he predicted, he said, we're going to have the emergence of a highly transmissible strain of this virus that will defeat any immunity generated, any antibodies generated from these vaccines. That was his theory. And McGill University, which is one of the leading medical schools in Canada, published a paper. You can look it up if you Google Dr. Geert Vanden Bosche's name. One of the first hits you'll get is an article by a publication put out by McGill University, and it said the doomsday scenario of Dr. Geert Vanden Bossche. And in their article, they acknowledge that the man has the educational background and all the expertise, and he's got the background on steroids to speak about this intelligently and to offer an expert opinion on it. But they tried to frame it as if he's trying to cash in on, here's a guy who's one of the leading voices in the world of vaccinology, and he's going to chuck it all in to become a guru to a bunch of conspiracy theorists. That was their basic thesis statement in their article. I consider it ridiculous on its face. What coming out, I think Geert Vanden Bossche is addicted to telling the truth, and the consequences be damned. Because anyway, he put out that warning: stop mass vaccination. We're going to have the emergence of a highly transmissible strain that will defeat vaccine-generated antibodies. And what did we have in late 2021, early 2022? Omicron. Exactly what he predicted came to pass. There was the emergence of a highly transmissible strain that circumvented the antibodies generated by any vaccine. And Omicron, we all saw what happened. The infection rate went through the roof. And I'd be interested to know what his thoughts are on bird flu. I'm going to look into that, see if there's anything out there. But the last thing I'm going to hit you with, and I'll see if I can get the article up. It's behind a paywall. But this is what you should be ready for. This is by Forbes, and I don't have this one linked below. But check out what Forbes is saying. Just there could return if a bird flu pandemic is declared. Oh, looks like I can read this. It's behind a paywall, but I get some free articles. An ongoing bird flu outbreak among U.S. dairy cows has led to 3 confirmed human cases. And although there aren't any... you got to put up with all the garbage these days. Although there aren't any confirmed cases of human-human transmission, experts warn safety measures like masks, vaccines, and safety goggles will be needed if a pandemic is declared due to the virus's deadly nature. And I'll include that in the live chat, and then I'll include it, I'll update the description below. But that's a wake-up call. I think it's very possible. So I'll end my video there. Just to let you know, I haven't been, after that, I did like 4 or 5 on the night of the by-election in Toronto, St. Paul riding, where the Conservative candidate won. But I'm probably going to be doing less than is my norm. And that's because my workplace, I was in the Army until 2021. And then in May of 2022, I started working in a retail establishment here in the town where I work. And staffing is getting hammered. One coworker just recently went into the hospital. She's apparently having heart trouble. We have another gentleman I work with, and his wife has been hospitalized. I don't know the specifics. I have another woman with whom I work. I was speaking to her today. She's on blood thinning medication because she's, for the last 2 years, developed blood clotting issues, and where the turnover rate is becoming quite high because of people leaving for medical reasons. Why that's happening, I have no idea. I have no idea that I'm going to state publicly on YouTube, but if you can read between the lines, you'll know exactly what I think. All these health issues that are coming up, heart issues, strokes, blood clotting, autoimmune conditions, you name it. What could be, is there a common denominator? Yeah, probably climate change. Anyway, I'll leave it there. No one commented, but that's okay. I enjoy it, but I don't want to force it either. So comment field is open down below. If you did enjoy this and you want to subscribe, please do. 950 odd, I think. Trying to get up to 1,000. We'll see if we get there. And if you want to hit the thumb up, thank you for the 5 that I've gotten already. And we will see you in another couple nights. Although I'm probably going to be working a lot of hours. There's talk that they may have to start approving overtime for people. And I've always been something of a team player when it comes to work. I don't like leaving people short. And so I was supposed to have Saturday off, and they asked me if I would come in and work a 9-hour day. So I'm going to be, and I'm probably going to end up working Sunday and Monday as well, the holiday. But it is what it is. So God bless, and we'll talk to you all soon. I am planning to do another Bible-based video talking about the 10 Commandments. If all goes well, I should be able to do that on Sunday. Anyway, we'll talk to you later. Night.